How's it going out there, everyone? W.F.S, your doctor here today. Hoping all of you have had a great day. I want to talk to you today about Star Trek The Next Generation. To be more specific, I want to talk about a couple of characters that, well, they don't make sense to me. At least certain things about the character and how they interact on the Enterprise absolutely confuse me. First on a list of characters that I have a problem with is Counselor Deanna Troi. Look at this scene right here. We have her sitting next to Picard, and on the opposite side of Picard, we have the first officer. First officer, the captain, and a counselor. All right. Now, she had the rank of lieutenant commander for 6 seasons before the seventh season when she was promoted to a bridge officer. So my question here is, why, just because she's a counselor and she's a lieutenant commander, does she get the honor of sitting next to the captain? Meanwhile, the security chief, which in my opinion has more responsibility than the counselor, has to stand up for her entire tour. Every time she's called on duty, she has to stand up at her post. Meanwhile, if you look at the back of the screen here of the bridge, there are consoles, there are chairs that pop out. But meanwhile, Counselor Troi, she gets a chair, but the security chief, Yar, and sooner or later Worf, who wouldn't mind standing one way or the other, yet neither one of these two will have a chair. They'll have to stand throughout their entire time serving on the bridge. And I'm sorry, but this is ridiculous. My main point here is she's the ship counselor. Deanna Troi is the ship's counselor. Why in the heck does she get the honor of sitting while the security chief, who is responsible for the security of the ship, has to stand the entire time? It makes no sense to me. Look at Strange New Worlds. Their security chief. Now, I know this is just a poor example because Strange New Worlds is a rough ride for everyone, but honestly, think about this though. They acknowledge that her position, the security chief, Lon Noonien Singh, she has a chair to sit in. She has a station, a workstation, because she is the head of security for this large ship. Now, to be fair about this, I'm really not a fan of Deanna Troi. I personally think that her character was kind of pointless and really didn't do much for the series. Now, you know I can't do a Star Trek The Next Generation video without talking about Wesley Crusher, Will Wheaton. Now, I was 17 when Next Generation came out, and Will Wheaton was 14 when he started playing Wesley. At the beginning, I was kind of excited to see a teenager on Next Generation. I thought it was a pretty cool idea. Smart boy, helping the crew out. But as time went on, I really started having a problem with him. Okay, so here's a scene that doesn't make any sense to me regarding Wesley. We have Riker, who is now going to the transporter room to greet O'Connor with Worf, and they're going to give him limited access while the crew is repairing his damaged part. But before he leaves the bridge, Riker grabs Data and Wesley and takes him to the transporter room to greet O'Connor. Why? What is the point of this? Why does Wesley need to be there? Yeah, the Traveler said to Picard that he should help encourage him and help him grow. But regardless, he is an acting ensign, and these particular events he should not be involved with. My problem with Wesley Crusher is the same as a lot of other people out there, is that he was just too smart for the show. He seemed to have all the answers and knew how to solve all the problems faster than anyone else on the ship. I mean, come on. He could even outperform Data in figuring out problems as the series went on, which I find hard to believe, yet the writers wanted us to accept that little idea. All right, so this one may come as a bit of a shock to some of you out there, but I do have a problem with the character Q. Now, John Delancey owned the character. No one will be able to replace or do the character the way John did. He is to Q what Robert Englund is to Freddy Krueger. No one can replace them. But the problem that I have is that they watered down the character as time went on and as Q made more appearances on Star Trek. He didn't seem as menacing or as dangerous as he used to be. We went from the character who stopped the Enterprise from going forward because they were a dangerous, childish race. He introduced them to the Borg, and then once that happened, all of a sudden, we started seeing a more softer, gentler Q, a Q more interested in Picard's love life, a Q that wanted to see Picard or give Picard a chance at seeing what his life would be like if he had altered it. This is not the same character that we met at the beginning. And I think they recognize that because toward the end, in All Good Things, Q seemed more menacing then than he did throughout the earlier episodes. Now let's take a trip to 10 forward and talk about the one character I really have a big problem with, and that is Guinan. Up until yesterday's Enterprise, I absolutely liked her. I thought she was a brilliant character and someone who was very beneficial to the Enterprise and to Starfleet. Unfortunately, after yesterday's Enterprise, my opinion of this character changed big time. The problem that I have here is when the timeline is altered, she goes off to Picard and tells him that the timeline is off and they need to fix it, things aren't right. And then when it comes to Tasha Yar, the big issue for me is how she handles the Tasha Yar character. She goes to Picard and tells him that the timeline has changed, but then when she sees Tasha, she treats her so bad because she's not supposed to be alive, and yet in this timeline she is. And then when Tasha senses that, she forces Guinan to explain what happened, and that causes Tasha to volunteer to go to the Enterprise C and go back in time where she is captured by the Romulans. And while a prisoner of the Romulans, one of the Romulans fell in love with her, and along the way, a child was produced and became Commander Celia of the Romulan Empire, which eventually would confront the Enterprise in Redemption Part 1 and 2, and a couple of other episodes along the way. But the problem that I have here is the fact that Guinan decides to confront Picard about this. Guinan confronts Picard about the events that happened in yesterday's Enterprise, except she blames Picard for everything that's going on. That's right, she blames him. It's his fault because he ordered Tasha onto the Enterprise C, and if it wasn't for that, she never would have been captured by Romulans, and they never would have had a baby, and that baby would never have grown up to be Commander Lacelia. I mean, really, Guinan is the whole reason a lot of things happen in the Star Trek universe. Remember, she was on the Enterprise B and was rescued from the Ribbon. Alorian refugees were rescued from the Ribbon. She could have warned them that the reason that they were refugees was because of the Borg and let them know that something nasty was out there. But nope, she kept that to herself until the Enterprise was thrown in front of them thanks to Q. And then they want to blame it all on Q when it is her fault. Okay, well, those were some of the things that I thought were just wrong about Star Trek The Next Generation. Some of them may sound silly to some of you, like Counselor Troy sitting next to Picard while Tasha Yar or even Worf gets to stand for their shift. I know that may be petty right there, but it just didn't make sense to me. But I would love to hear your thoughts and comments. Do you have anything about The Next Generation? Any scenes, any characters that maybe have bothered you or you've thought were out of place? I would love to hear your comments. So please drop those comments below and let me know. Until the next time, my friends, God bless.